Yeah, he's in great fear of being kicked out of the program. So.
If you shaved off your mustache, you'd lose a pound right there.
Okay.
Have some chocolate cake, shave the mustache, you'll be good.
And when you show up for drum practice, I'll give you some chips. No, by the way, the cereal's good. I like that. Okay. So why do I suffer? What do you think about that? Did that make sense to you? That handout?
It just seems totally it's human nature. That's what's so hard about this, is that if this is a human nature, it almost feels like you're constantly battling your own nature.
Yeah, but we don't say that, right?
Yeah.
You ask a person, why do you love him? Well, he makes me laugh. He makes me happy. Well, why don't you like this person? Well, he makes me angry. It's in our very culture, right? The little market, like you ever seen a bottle of Coke in an ad, and it's ice cold and there's sweat dripping down it, right? And they encourage and market greed. Greed is good, right? From Wall Street, Gordon Gekko, yeah, right? So it's all, they market for you to want things, and what Buddhism is saying is the exact opposite. You have needs, you have to exist in the world, we're humans, but wanting beyond your needs, as Jan said, is craving and desire. And it's always based on the fact that you feel incomplete. You always feel there's something that you're missing. You always feel that there's something that can give you peace.
You have to buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, but look what that incurs. How many people heard the story about the woman in Hamilton who won over $10 million? And in 9 years it was all gone, and now she's got 2 jobs. Is that not suffering? Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe somebody knows the statistics, how many people get these big winnings and it's all gone?
Half of them.
Yeah.
Half of them.
Yeah.
Half of them are gone.
And the other half probably die early because they're miserable.
So winning the lottery is just a huge problem. It's another kerfuffle. You know, I don't buy lottery tickets. I don't even go. Of course, the Buddhist view is not to gamble. And that's because, just think of the poor people, all that bad karma with the people losing, and you're bringing all that in. So I don't buy lottery tickets. I don't even go there. I don't want all that money. Yeah. You could say, well, Jan, buy it and win it and give it away. Even that would be a problem. No, I'm quite content where I'm at in my little house with my aging husband, and I'm quite happy. Yes, Lori.
I listen to a podcast sometimes called Audio Dharma, and it's one of the speakers is Gil Fronsdale, and he always says that Buddhism is actually subversive, right? For this reason, because as you settle and you start to let go of some of the cravings and clingings and everything, you're opting out of this commercial gotta get more all the time. So it actually changes the culture to introduce Buddhism.
Well, I don't know if anybody ever read Gary Zukav's book or knew Gary Zukov, and used to be on Oprah. But he withdrew. He was a sexual addict, and he withdrew from society. He was up a mountain, didn't even have a television. And he wrote his book and got on Oprah. Well, didn't it all just blow up? And he was exceptionally popular and wealthy and in great demand, and didn't his addiction come back? So, then he went back up the mountain and wrote another book that didn't come down for a while. So actually that was on my path, along with a few other books that ultimately brought me here. But Gary Zukav's book was interesting. Florence, did you have a question or comment earlier? I thought I saw your hand go up.
What was that podcast, though?
Audio Dharma.
Audio Dharma? Thanks.
Yes, Greg.
Just, you said something about human nature. So you said something about human nature, and I just wanted to maybe say something about that. Because when we talk about human nature, in Buddhism we say like our nature is actually, our true nature is without afflictions. And so I kind of prefer to think of it as like not human nature, but human habit. right? Because ultimately what we're talking about is kind of like the habits that we've had ingrained in us over time, that in Buddhism we say we can change those habits, we can, you know, diminish that karma, and we can actually be a different way. But we, you know, those habits are so deeply ingrained that we actually think that it is our true nature. But even something like, you know, it's ingrained in us even down to our DNA. So something like competition, right, is like in our DNA. We're designed to compete with each other for resources, right? And that's part of, you know, how we've been lifetime after lifetime. But even that instinct, if you like, can be overcome. And the function that that instinct has in terms of helping us to survive, helping our families and our you know, closer gene pool to survive, can be overcome. Like we can have that, compassion can fill that same function, right? And wisdom can fill that same function. Whereas, you know, in the past, for generation after generation, it's been anger and it's been violence that's filled that function, right? So there's nothing kind of special or whatever about having a violent nature or having a greedy nature. It's just something that's kind of been ingrained in us, you know, generation after generation. But it doesn't mean that that's our nature. It just means that it's our habit, right? And that's, you know, when you think about that, you know, when we talk about kind of overcoming our karma and changing our nature, that's the challenge that we're up against, right? It's kind of at that level. It's not just, you know, I'm going to quit smoking, right? It goes much deeper than that. But Buddhism tells us that it can be done, and our true nature is not what we think it is. Our true nature is actually, that's why we call them hindrances. We don't call it, it's not part of our nature, it's just what obscures our nature. Does that make sense?
The Buddha said that we're intrinsically complete and we lack nothing. That's hard to think, isn't it? Intrinsically complete. We don't need anything. We got it all. But we got all this stuff on top of us. We got all these dramas we play out. We start stripping them away. Yeah.
So is a practice to disengage, like detach from the hindrances and just notice what's underneath them and what your need really is?
I'm going to be talking about that more during the Fourth Noble Truth.
Okay.
Again, what we're talking about today is the
Just
cause of
suffering.
suffering.
Okay.
But the first week,
Yes,
what
let's
we're
not get
talking
away
about
from
is-
suffering.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
and even more, like, people look at suffering as a hard word to sort of, you know, encompass, right? It's one thing to say I'm responsible for my happiness. It's another thing to say I'm responsible for my suffering, too. That's a hard pill to swallow, right? But the two are interlinked. But what we're saying here is that, you know, there is dukkha, and dukkha is where the word translates to suffering. And dukkha can also be translated, and I think more correctly, into dissatisfaction. That we're never really satisfied. And the cause of that, as Jan is saying here, are these hindrances. And it's not to purge them. The way is to replace them with other practices so that you get sukha, which is happiness. So you're replacing unsatisfactory with satisfactory.
Now, if you were to go and Google the Buddhist cause of suffering, what you're going to get is all these hits. Now, this is a misunderstanding, and I'm just going to point it out. They're going to say that, according to Buddhism, it's craving, it's craving, it's craving, it's craving, it's craving. Well, in Buddhism, like in the way that Buddhism was spread in the beginning was by the oral tradition. And so if you read a sutra, there's a lot of repetition, and that helped them to memorize everything. So take example, for example here, the five hindrances, starting with sensual desire. You might see that in the sutra, and they'll say, oh, you know, the 5 hindrances are sensual desire, and then leave the rest empty. You would know that all the rest would follow. So in this case, what they would often say was suffering is created or caused by craving. But we also know that all the others are there as well. So it can be a little bit misunderstanding or misleading, and I wanted to speak to that so that there wasn't confusion there. Thich Nhat Hanh in his book points that out because people can get confused and they run around like people say, well, Buddha only talked about suffering, 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 suffering. No, he talked about joy too. But as was said last week, when joy ends, we suffer because we really want that joy. We want to feel good, we want to be happy, and we'll go out and get anything we can. A brand new car, big chocolate cake, whatever it is to make us happy, but they're short-lived. They're momentary fixes. And then you're looking for, I used the example last week of a pair of shoes, ladies. We go in the store and there's a new pair of shoes. Oh my goodness, they're going to go with all my latest clothes. I love them, I want them. And if you buy them, you'll wear them for a little while. You got a closet full of perfectly good shoes, but they're going to end up with those other perfectly good shoes. And then you'll be going to want for something else that'll make you feel good, to gratify you for that moment. And with Buddhism, it is to find that balance, the middle path that you'll learn more about, that will bring you contentment, but still allow you to be successful. I used the example last week that as human beings, we have this wonderful ability to take the word desire and redefine it as desirability. There's nothing wrong with desirability if it's going to propel us into doing good things. You know, we've got this ability. We are human beings. We can change. We can transform. It's not always easy if it's an addiction. And we've had students here that have come here after losing absolutely everything because they were addicted to drugs and alcohol. They lost their families. And they were here on their path, putting it back together again. And I have the greatest respect for these people because it's not easy. Being a smoker, I know how tough it was. But to lose one's whole family, their job, everything, because of addiction, wow. And to get back on the road and be successful now. Yeah, that's great. So for next week, what I want you to do, and that's if you're willing to go into groups, or maybe not.
Can we pick the group?
No.
Pick who we're with?
No, that's attachment. You know better than that, Barry. I know you. I've got my eyes on you. I want you to look, and this is your homework. I want you to go and be as mindful as possible to what you're thinking about. Look at the content of those thoughts. Are they negative? Are they positive? Maybe they're just neutral. Maybe you are suffering. Where is that coming from? Can you look deep enough? Can you stop and think, well, this is my cause of suffering? And if you're willing to share in a small group, maybe. I don't know. What makes you happy? What makes you content? Can you be content? Think about this. Who in this class of the new students, I'm really centering you out, meditate? Are you incorporating some mindfulness or meditation? You don't have to put your hand up, but think about it. Even if it's just, one of our students, I may have mentioned this last Saturday, couldn't meditate. She says, Jan, I can't sit to meditate. It's impossible. I just can't do that. Talk about restlessness. So I got to know her, and she told me a little bit about her life, and she was a runner. And I've never ran, but I hear that people that run get into the zone. Well, so I asked her, I said, when you run, do you get in the zone? She says, oh yeah. I said, well, you're meditating. She says, no, I'm not. Yeah, you are. And, now she meditates. She can sit to meditate. So it's just a way of redefining where you're probably doing all this good stuff, but you're just maybe not aware. Or else this is the first time, like, I went through all this stuff and I used to sit behind that post and hide. I used to cry behind that post because I didn't want anybody realizing that, boy, this stuff was really news to me. So anyways, think about that. That's your homework. It's not hard, but it is hard to really live in the moment. I thank you very much. Next week, again, suffering. And you already have your handout. Okay. Thank you.